Hello, sir. Comment lagi kung no, ilaw. Baka
Oh, gotcha.
Are you hearing?
Oh, yes, sir. We are
yes,
hearing you now.
we can hear you now.
Okay, my battery, the phone battery went down, so
Okay.
I had to get a little charge on it.
Okay, sir. All right.
Okay, we'll just kind of do a quick review of Uzziah, and then we want to, if possible, touch on Micah. All right.
Yes,
sir.
What questions do you have thus far concerning Uzziah? Or at least I should ask each person, give me an idea of what you would have learned from the book of Uzziah so far.
Sir, the book of Hosea, in that book, we have learned that, well, let's say that account is like an allegory. It just uses every situation as an illustration to explain something that is happening. So let's say that we have Hosea, which in the illustration represent God with his love for the children of Israel. And so we have now Gomer, which represent the children of Israel, which are like behaving against the will of the husband, or, well, let's say go to see other, what was the word again? Well, she was still having pleasure with other stranger, let's say stranger or other men, and leaving her husband. And so this was the same situation of God with the children of Israel, because even though God was doing good to them, God was providing for them based on the love that He has for them. They were still going to other gods. They were still going to strangers, have fellowship with them, drinking wine, and so on. And so God was not pleased with this, and He had asked Hosea to go and marry Gomer, an harlot, or we may say a prostitute, in order to show clearly to the children of Israel how bad they are behaving. And we could get as lesson that God is a jealous God. Well, we could also say God doesn't want us to serve other gods, which is like a kind of adultery, all right, a spiritual adultery, and so on. So a lot. So far, so good, sir.
All right, good.
Yes.
Brother Wood?
Yes, sir. What I would have
Roy is back, right?
not as yes, sir. Yes, he is, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, sir. What I would have learned from the book of Hosea, besides what Brother Solon has mentioned concerning God using the life of Hosea and Gomer to show how the children were behaving before him and how it actually grieves him, because God is not really pleased when people are when people are forsaking him, backsliding, leaving him, and go and worship other false gods, worship idols. And so God actually uses Hosea. Now, what we can also learn is, even though people are continuing to backsliding from God to do things that will not make God happy, God is still merciful. Because if we look at the story carefully, we will see that even though Gomer had left Hosea and go have another son with someone else, Hosea regained her, and it is the same thing. Even though the children of Israel, they were being far away from God with their bad behaviors and practices, God still loved them. And in fact, God still wanted to deliver them, to redeem them, to save them because of his great love and his mercy. This is the other thing that we can learn from the history or from the story in the book of Hosea. What we can also learn is from the man itself, as and I believe that this can actually be profitable for us today as Christians to be as obedient as Hosea was back then and as patient with God when God has a plan and he's using us as object of lesson to show something. We must be patient because God, as Paul said in Corinthians, will not let us be tempted by things we cannot handle. In fact, with that temptation, God will also provide a way for us to escape. And so we also need to be as Hosea, not as Jonah when Jonah disobeyed God, even though Jonah has a lot of good qualities because he repented and so on. But at first he disobeyed the commandments of God. But Hosea now here, the history, well, the thing will personally affect him because it's about him getting married with a wife of harlotry. But what he did not disobey. In fact, he obeyed. He did not even complain concerning what God asked him to do. And so as Christians, we need to think about it and ask ourselves, are we as obedient as Hosea was? How do we obey God's word? Is it when it is profitable for us? When we will have some advantages, or is it fully or something like that? We need to basically think about it. This is the other lesson we can actually learn from the history, but the book and the man Hosea, sir. Thank you.
Okay, good, good. Brother Roy, the thing that you have learned
Yes,
so
sir.
far. By the way, I
Yes,
don't
sir.
need the screen. Okay, that's okay.
Okay, sir. In the book of Hosea, because the children of Israel turned them back against God and going and committing adultery, so God used Hosea and his wife Gomer to as a symbol to show Israel what they are actually doing. Now, because of all this that they were doing, God says to them that He will not increase them, because He said that if they even have children, they will have miscarriage and they will die. And one part it says their breast will be dry, so they don't have any milk inside to give to their young ones. So that's what I learned from that, sir.
Okay. How could that book, and this is for arts review, how could this book, examples be drawn from it in the matter of divorce?
Sorry, sir.
Yes, that is for arts review. What question? What?
Yes, sir.
How could you use this book to illustrate that person don't have to divorce?
Well, sir, this is something that needs, that would ask us to take a little time to reflect about it, because I would not like to say anything that could be probably questionable, because these are some sensitive matter.
Yeah, it might be
Let me give
sensitive,
it a
but don't
try,
you
sir.
think? Yes, sir.
Let me give it a try, sir.
All right.
Um, even though Uzziah married to Gomer, she went out and have affairs with other men, and
Mm-hmm.
Uzziah accept her back when she would have come back to him. So in our lives today, we all make mistakes in our lives, and everybody need a second chance.
All right, Brother Wood.
Yes, sir. What I can say is actually based on what Brother Roy would have said is that the whole idea of man separating from others and not forgiving is not from God, but from Satan and from human beings. So the whole concept from God is about love, about forgiving others, about bearing one another's burden. So what we see in the life of Hosea is that even though Gomer was not loyal, was not how can I say faithful to him, she kept on having other relationship outside of marriage with other men. But Hosea, he still loved her. In fact, when we look at chapter 3, we will see where Hosea actually buy her back with 15 shekels and some other things, just to show that we as human, when it does not mean that when someone is making something bad or when someone did something wrong, we have to basically press on it or keep on punishing the person. We can also forgive the person. In fact, Paul says, if we remember in First Corinthians chapter 5, when the man took his father's wife, and in Second Corinthians, when Paul was basically asking the brethren to do not keep on punishing the guy because this could give Satan the advantage. And if we remember also, where in First Peter, where Peter was explaining that even though the husband is not a righteous man, or even though the husband does not believe in God, because of how the wife behaves herself, this can actually bring the husband and make him accept Christ, bring him and make him see the light. And it is the same thing as in marriage for both sides. If the woman is not behaving in a good manner, it is true that the Bible says if we basically see or the person when he is doing or committing the adultery, we are now free to do and to divorce. But the best way could be, well, I'm not going to say the best way, but a good way is that we could also try to set it out to look at what is the issue, what is the reason why this is happening. Because basically, as Freud would have said in psychology, with psychic determinism, we do not do anything by chance. So there must be a reason for that if this is happening. And by doing so, or even by how we react based on what is happening, this can also bring the person to repentance, to make him regret what he did wrong and try to do better. This is a good way also to settle conflict. I don't know if I'm right, sir.
Yeah. You're doing well. Because overall in the book, it is showing the extent of God's love for his people, his bride, if you want to so speak. That in spite of our wretchedness, he still go out of his way to redeem, to ransom us, just like how Uzziah uh, followed the directive and ransom his wife. And that the idea can go both ways, both wife or husband, don't?
Yes, sir. Sure. Yes,
And it is saying that is a unceasing love, unrelenting love that we should have for our mate and for people in general.
Mhm.
In spite of what they would have done and said, then we need to still love them. Because it says we must love us as Christ loved and would have given himself for us. Huh?
Right. Yes, sir.
Yes,
And
sir.
I use that as a teaser, man, and it is said that God hate divorce.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
You hear me? So it is something that is not easy to swallow. It's not easy to swallow, but if we are going to be as obedient to God as persons that are preparing for heaven, then we have to do just as he acts and just as the examples that were shown.
Yes, sir. And so, sir, one more thing I would like to add, sir.
Go ahead.
Yes, as you would have mentioned the example of God loving people, if we look at throughout the history, basically, we will see that mankind keep on transgressing and sinning and not observing fully the commitments of God. And if
Uh-huh.
God does not punish us, it is not because he does not have the right to do so. In fact, God is a God of justice, so he could have punished us. But because of his love, he also gives us the example of forgiveness. He sent his son Jesus Christ that we can find a way in order to be redeemed and to be saved from his wrath, just to show that the whole concept that God is not really pleased with the concept of divorce, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we're just gonna run through our outline a little bit and the teachings of the book. That's
Yes.
Hosea. And
That's my
remember that I give. Beg your pardon?
that is my sir. Should I go back to Hosea, sir?
Yeah, we're going back to Hosea to just do a quick review. And
Or
remember, we have an assignment to memorize chapter 4.
verse 1 to 10.
Yes.
Yes,
Or,
sir.
I might give all 10 verses, I might give 4 verses, I might give 6, but I want you to have the concept of what each verse holds. But the
Or
teachings, just running through, if you will follow, the teachings of the book, the picture of the true nature of God. Right?
yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
God is a great and unceasing lover. He is willing to go to any extent to cause his people to pause, look upon, and come back to know the lover who is really taking care of them.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Then we'll move to our next particular teaching, and we'll see something there if you look at, and that's on page, if your book is right 10, said God is a great sufferer who has found his love unrequited, cannot be quitted. The people who do not know their God, they are stupid, without intelligence, insensible to all that which is high and holy. And above all, they are not even conscious of God and the love that he has for them. Since they cannot understand the love of God, they cannot properly love God. And that is true. If you don't understand the love of God, you can love God. Then look, a picture of true nature of sin. You are there?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
All right, just running through.
Yes,
Sin
sir.
is final analysis is unfaithfulness, infidelity, and whoredom. Sin ages one and destroy his youthful spirit. The decay is gradual, but dangerous and fatal. Sin is contagious, and one who exposes himself to the atmosphere and the presence of those or influence
Oh, look at
his
this.
body cannot hope to escape this certain consequence. It's like COVID, don't.
Yes, sir.
Right. Right, sir.
If you expose yourself too much, then it's gonna what? Hit you. That's
That's
what
it.
sin does. It is contagious.
Yes, we'll catch it.
Yes. And in the contrary, the opposite, righteousness is not contagious.
Right.
You know, it's like, let's say, a healthy person will not just give health to somebody else, but a sick person will give disease to the next person. Don't.
Yes, true. That's true,
Right.
sir.
Right.
All right.
Right, sir.
Let's run on. Sin affects as a certain and as a natural as the power of gravity. Sin can only end in captivity, for the heart is rotten to the core. Then it says, sin robs a person or people of the power to make moral distinction. And I like this one. It says, the optic nerve has been severed by gazing too long and too longingly for immorality.
Ah,
All right?
that's the high. That's the nerves in the high.
Yes. Let's jump a little bit. And there are other things that we could consider, but jump a little bit to the practical lessons.
Yes, sir.
Without the knowledge of Jehovah and his law, there can be no fellowship with God. That's a lesson, right?
Yes, sir.
Then
Right,
a
sir.
practical lesson, right? The sacredness and the sanctity of marriage. That can be extracted from this book. Then sin destroy the nerve that enable men to make moral distinction. That is between right and wrong. You know, I saw something this morning. I don't know how truthful it is, that Canada is at the time about to legalize bestiality.
Mm-hmm. What you saying,
Yes,
sir?
y'all can, y'all can do your search. You know, they have already legalized homosexuality and all of that. But that's what I heard. I don't know how truthful it is. I don't have the facts, and they're saying it to you. You know, you can go and do your search and
Yes.
see if that is true.
Yes,
You know,
sir.
that is man having relationship with animals, eh?
Right.
Animal. Right.
So you know, so that's what sin does. It rob you of that thing to make moral distinction. Then inward corruption is more dangerous to a nation than its existence than external enemies. All right?
Yes, sir.
You know, it's just like inward war is greater than external war.
Right. That's true, sir.
You know, it's happening in the 80s, it's happening in Jamaica, where we have civil war, roughly. Look how many persons are being killed by our own Jamaicans. You know, look how many persons that are being killed by our own Asian brothers and sisters.
Yes, sir.
If you notice the external world not doing that to us,
Right.
we are doing it to ourselves. Then the root sin from which all other spring is unfaithfulness to Jehovah.
Jehovah.
Yeah, so these are some practical lessons that you can develop, you can look at, you can use them and apply them to your life and then apply them to the lives of others.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Yes, sir.
What sermon you can get from it too, sir?
Yeah, man, a whole lot. Whole lot. That's why it says apply them to yourself first, then apply them to others. All right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now let's look at Micah.
Yes, sir.
Micah.
He's classified as a champion of the poor.
Poor.
Champion of the poor. And he later wrote about 735 to 700 BC. Somewhere there.
Yes, sir.
Some background, and these backgrounds are very important.
Yes, sir.
It was the golden age of prophecy and the dark age, a prophet said dark and black age of Judah. It was a period of turmoil, strife, and change and growth. And here's what happened. In 745 BC, Tiglath-Pileser III began his conquest of the West. In 738 BC, his army was in Syria and at the gate of Samaria, the capital of the northern nation of Israel. Tired of Assyria's taxes, Israel and Syria plead. Yes, sir. Go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
No, I just, yes, sir. What I observe in reading the book of Jonah, I realize that Micah and Jonah have something in common.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right. So we're just running through.
Yes.
They said they were tired of Assyria's taxes. Israel and Syria plead to Egypt for help. Jotham and Ahaz refused to join up, raising the king of Syria and Pekah, the king of Israel, war with Ahaz, defeat him and sack the city of Jerusalem. It was a dark hour. Ahaz called for help from Tiglath-Pileser, who defeated both opposing kings. Ahaz is forced to go to Damascus and pay alliance to Assyria and accept his place as a puppet king. So he couldn't handle it, so he get somebody else, and then he had to serve the other king. And that's what normally happens. Eh?
Yes, sir. That's true.
Sargon, the new king of Syria, came up upon the west in 711 BC and afflicted a terrible judgment upon nearby nations like Philistia and Judah. In some way, Hezekiah and the king of Israel were spared. And it's just giving you what was happening. At the death of Sargon in 705, the young Sennacherib came into power in Assyria. In the west, Egypt, Phoenicia, Philistia, Judah, and some of the smaller kingdoms revolted. But Sennacherib defeated every rebel, and only the direct intervention of God spared Hezekiah and Jerusalem. These are stirring times. God was leading his followers and gradually working out his own great purpose in the world. So when you would have read Micah, you can understand some of the sayings there, why they are so potent. Because he hit all sides. All sides. Right? And you might have questions up there. I will stop for a question before we move anywhere else. What question do you have?
I do not have
Hello?
any question.
Sir?
We don't have any questions, sir.
All right. Have you read the book?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we don't have to go through all of it. But I want to just point out I want to point out verse 5 in chapter 1 a little bit. All this is for the transgression of Jacob and for the sin of the house of Israel. What is the transgression of Jacob? Is it not Samaria? And what are the high places of Judah? Are they not Jerusalem? So everything that's going to happen is because of transgression.
Right. Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Look at verse 7.
Yes, sir.
It says, all her carved images shall be beaten to pieces, and all her pay as harlot shall be burned with fire. Her idols I will lay desolate, for she gathered it from the pay of harlot, and they shall return to the pay of harlot. Therefore I will wail and howl, and I will go stripped and naked. I will make a wailing like the jackals, and a mourning like the ostrich, for her wounds are incurable, for it has gone to Judah, and it has come to the gate of my people, Jerusalem. So the idea is that they have actually turned away from God. As a result of that, they are going to suffer the consequence. And it tells why. You would have read it, so I'm not going to spend too much time. I might just finish today, and then you can use next week, maybe for preparation.
Okay, sir. All right, sir.
You get what I'm saying? And we will have to meet. We'll have to meet, I guess, for Ephesians and maybe Corinthians. But next week we could use it for preparation.
Okay, sir.
All right, sir.
But let's look at the social condition. Read Brother Wood, and then Brother Roy will deal with the religious condition. Then Brother Solon will look at the sin at the time.
Yes, sir. Social conditions. First, corrupt and administering justice. In chapter 2, verse 2, chapter 3, verse 2. Chapter 2, verse 2 reads, they covet fields and take them by violence, also houses and seize them. So they oppress a man and his house, a man and his inheritance. Now, chapter 3, verse 2 actually reads, you who hate good and love evil, who stripped the skin from my people and the flesh from their bones. 2, greed and religious.
All right.
Yes, sir.
All right. See if we can make some application to current situation in the world.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, man. Use your bread.
Oh, all right, sir. Yes, sir. What we look at, first of all, when we see corrupt and administering, is how people are basically oppressing others. And if we pay attention to what he said in chapter 2, verse 2, where it reads, they covet fields and take them by violence. And this is the same thing that is actually happening in the world. I don't know for Jamaica, but in Haiti, we used to have an issue where people used to live. For example, if I have a land and I might go in other countries and I basically spend some years not coming back. But those who used to see me in the land, because I passed 5 years out of the country, what they will do is that some of them, they will actually come and take the land and sell it to others. So when you return and try to say, well, this is my property, this is my land, in fact, they will try to do violence to you. And this is the same thing that was happening back then in the time of Micah with the children of Israel. So they...
All right, you get the message. You get the message.
All right.
But it was, you get the message, because it was really the leading persons, the administrators, like the government and councillors and so forth,
Right, right.
Was just thing there. Then look at the next point. A quick one.
Yes, sir. Greed and religious leaders, chapter 3, verse 9 to 11. It reads, "Now hear this, you heads of the house of Jacob and rulers of the house of Israel, who abhor justice and pervert all equity, who build up Zion with bloodshed and Jerusalem with iniquity. Her hand judge for a bribe, her priests her head judge for a bribe, her priest teach for pay, and her prophets divine for money. Yet they lean on the Lord and say, is not the Lord among us? No harm can come upon us." What we see here is people doing what God does not tell them to do. In fact, they are so corrupt that it is actually happening in the religious world. They even pretend that, well, even though we are doing what is wrong, God is still with us and God will still preserve us as if we were doing what is right. And this is also the same thing in the world today, where we see priests and preachers doing things that are completely different from what the Bible teaches, and they pretend to be servant of God, to have God as the source of knowledge while they are preaching things that are wrong. In fact, some people believe that even though we are doing what is wrong, we were saved once, so we can do whatsoever we want, we will still be saved. And that is a Calvinistic idea, and this is the same thing.
Yes, sir.
Right.
And thirdly, it talk about the carelessness and cruelty of the people. That word is greed and cruelty.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Yeah, greed. If you look at 8 following, it says, "My people are risen up as an enemy and pull off the robe with the garment." And you have an outer garment and inner garment.
Yes,
so they
sir.
are taking everything. And for those who trust you as they pass by, like men return from war, the women of my people are cast out from their pleasant houses, from their children. And it just goes on and show how wicked these people
Yes, sir.
were. They were greedy.
Cruel.
Yes.
Yes, they were corrupt as well.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Brother Roy? Brother Roy is there?
Yes, sir. Yes, he is.
Did I give him the social condition or his brother solid?
Religious conditions, sir.
Yes, religious.
Yes, sir. False prophets. Chapter 2, verse 11. And it reads, "If a man should walk in a false spirit and speak a lie, saying, I will prophesy to you of wine and drink, even he would be the prattler of these people." Yes. Well, I have to explain as well, or continue?
No, man, let's go.
All right. Now, soothsaying, witchcraft, superstition, and idolatry. Chapter 7, verse 2 and verse 4.
Application. General application.
General application.
Is that something that is in our world today?
Yes, sir.
All right, that's all I want, for you to kind of flip your mind and say, well, this is applicable. In Jamaica, it's Wobia. In Haiti, it's voodoo.
Yes,
right?
Sir.
In the next country, is sorcery. Right? in the next country, they might just switch it off and say it's mysticism. You with me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Brother Roy, the sins of the time.
Yes, sir. So shall I continue?
No, Brother Roy is supposed to just pick up with the sins of the time.
So chapter 2, verse 2, sir.
The sins of the times from the slide. Well, not
Yeah, man, just go from D. That is the point D.
Can you see the screen, Brother
What I
Roy?
should do, sir?
Well, it seems like you had to leave class for us, right? Just take it over the sins of the time, oppression of the poor. Read chapter 2 and verse 2. They covet fees and take them by violence, also houses and seize them, and they also oppress a man and his house, a man and his inheritance. Right? It's just depicting the sins of the time. That was one. Covetousness, oppression of the poor. Then you have the unscrupulous use of power, where a person will just use, quote unquote, the authority that they have and cause others to suffer. Huh? And then the lack of integrity. You could go through chapter 6, and I like chapter 6 and verse 12. I'm going to turn there, chapter 6 and verse 12, where it says, for our rich men are full of violence, her inhabitants are spoken lies, and their tongue is deceitful in their mouth. You know, lack of integrity. Then the reckless call for religion, chapter 3 and verse 5 through 8. Yeah, dear Brother Roy. For thus said the Lord concerning the prophets who make my people stray, who chant peace while they chew with their teeth, but who prepare war against them, who put nothing in their mouth. Therefore you shall have night without vision, and you shall have darkness without divination. The sun shall go down on the prophets, and the day shall be dark for them. And it goes straight through. For the seer, I remember the word seer actually means prophet, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, for the seer, reader, Brother Roy. I think you're dropping out. Brother Roy? All right, it seems like,
Yes, sir.
yeah, verse 7.
Chapter 7, sir.
Chapter
Verse
3.
7 of chapter 3. All right, I think I can get you
So
turned
the
around.
seer shall be ashamed, and the diviner abashed. Indeed, they shall all cover their lips, for there is no answer from God.
All right. So even those that think that they are prophets and out of that, you know, they shall be banished or put aside. You know, it's like you have some prophets that actually say this is what will happen, and still they cannot get through. They said, you know, Trump would get back in, but Trump didn't get back in. They said that Porsche will get in, and Porsche don't get back in. And they call themselves prophet, but they're not prophets.
That's right.
Because
Sir.
what the prophet said will come true.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Questions or comments?
None so far.
No,
sir.
sir.
And I know we started late on this part, but I want you to get it. And we have already touched something on the teachings of the book.
Yes, sir.
You know, but we are going to highlight some other things. If you have questions or comments, and please remember, and I want to say it, Remember that quotation that I gave you.
Which one, sir?
The one in chapter 6 of Micah.
Chapter 6, verse 12.
No, verse 6 to 8.
Oh, all right, sir.
All right, I'm going to read it so that you don't forget it. With what shall I come before the Lord and bow myself before the high God? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, 10,000 rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, for the fruit of my body, the fruit of my body for the sins of my soul? He has shown you, O man, what is good. And this is very, very important. And what does the Lord require of you? That you do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. All right, it's a powerful passage that I really want you all to sink in your head a little bit. You know, what God really requires. It just boils down to about 3 things right there. Your relationship with man, your relationship with God. What we have seen there also is that the rulers hated good and loved evil.
Yes, sir.
They took bribes. In fact, they were called cannibals. Chapter 3 and verse 3. They were cannibalistic. 3 and verse 3. It says, also they eat the flesh of my people. They flay the skin from them, break their bones, and chop them in pieces like meat for the pot, like flesh in the cauldron. So they were cannibalistic because they were really oppressing
Oh, okay.
the people. Huh?
So it's not something literal, sir.
Well, we know that it happens already where mothers eat their own children.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, so that is cannibalism. So the possibilities are always there. But I know that it's seen from our reading that it might be a type of figure, eh?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It sounds so.
It might be. I'm not sure.
Yes, sir.
Because it starts out in verse 3 and said, I said, hear, O heads of Jacob and you rulers of the house of Israel, is it not for you to know justice? You have ate the good and loved evil. You strip the skin from my people and the flesh from their bones, who also eat the flesh of my people, flay their skin from them, break their bones. So the possibility is showing the type of rough situation that those that had authority was actually unleashing on the person that were not only outcast but downtrodden. You talk about the prophets who actually prophesy for money.
Yes, sir.
If they don't get the money, they prepare a war against you. And the priests who taught for hire. But Micah gave a good picture of God. He is a judge. He's a God of ethical righteousness. He is a God who loves peace. He's a God of hope and promise. And then it gives the idea of the program God has for Judah: anguish and suffering and pain and exile and a return, a new kingdom of redeemed soul and evangelism for the whole world. So in it, we have some messianic prophecies.
Yes, sir. From chapter 7.
All right.
Yes, sir.
And here's the text that I gave you to quote. The nature of true religion. This is what true religion looks like
Yes, sir.
and feels like. Go ahead, Brother Solon. Are you close? Just deal with that for me, please. The
So,
nature of true religion. Take the first one, Brother Wood, the next, and Brother Roy, the third.
all right, sir. To do justly, the golden rule, Matthew 7, verse 12, man's relationship to himself, a life of elementary mortality.
All right.
To love kindness, Jesus said, quoting from Hosea, I desire mercy, not sacrifice. Many times Jesus was moved with compassion, man's relationship to others, a life of benevolence.
Brother Roy?
He just, well, get out, that's
Well, sir, it just have some. Okay, he's back now, sir.
Okay. Go ahead, Brother Roy.
His mic is not connected as yet.
Okay, he's on now, sir. But all right.
Go ahead with
Not sister worry, but all right.
Yes. Stop it.
Number 3, but all right.
Yes, yes, Brother Wood.
Are you seeing the cursor?
Number 3. All right. The true nature of religion. And we have covered 2 already, and this is number 3. 1 was to do justly. 2 was to love mercy. 3 is to walk humbly before God. All right?
Yes, sir.
So there are 3 great qualities: justice, kindness, and humility. And those going to flow out in the passage that I gave you to quote. All right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And if you don't remember anything from Mike, I want you to remember
These verses.
those verses, because it captures what God requires in comparison to what the people at that time was given to God. All right, questions or comments?
No, sir. No questions, sir. Seems that
All right.
everything clear.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So what we'll do now, and then after we finish here, I will open up for questions, and the test already been written up, you see?
Okay, sir.
Although you cannot see, don't.
We cannot see, sir.
Cannot see, sir.
Good. All right. So here is some practical lessons, and these will last forever. It's right there. It tells us that elaborate pretension of piety and liberal gifts in public cannot atone for a lack of true righteousness in the heart. You remember we were looking at that in Corinthians this morning?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Similar thoughts, right?
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Then B, and that is true, you know, we can have all type of elaborate type of worship. It doesn't matter how big and fancy we dress this way, we do that, but that can't atone for what's happening in the heart. Because God knows the heart. Because
Wow.
you know, you can be as nice outside, but inside you're rotten, don't.
Yes, sir.
B, the unscrupulous use of power even though within the bound of the law, hurt the art of God, that God feel bad about it. God is not pleased when we wield power. And that is true, not of just prime ministers, not of just governors, but also in the home, at church, and in any institution you can think. If you wield your power unreasonably, God is not pleased.
Right.
So the unscrupulous use of power, even though within the bounds of law, hurt the heart of God. Then 3, courage comes to anyone who senses the presence of God in his life. I want you to bear it in mind. Courage comes to anyone who senses the presence of God in his life. You know, sometimes it's not that you believe you have the strength, but the fact that you know who is keeping up your rear guard, your side guard, your front guard, that is God. God is with you. And if God is with you, you outnumber everybody else.
Yes, sir.
So you can do what you need to do, which is right in the sight of God, not fearing at all.
Yes, sir.
Right? So you all need to build up that courage, and you're going to be called upon to exercise that courage to just say that which is right when it is right. It doesn't matter who is going to what hurt. If it is right, you're not hurting anyone, but people hurting themselves. Then the difference between the false prophet and the true prophet is no more than creed, than in conduct. And that kind of sounds thing there, but you could write it down and all that. If you have the creed and not the conduct, you are still false because you have played the hypocrite on. With me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Think about it. Then a big question: how reasonable are the basic requirements of God? How unchangeable are his demands? How deep and tender and changeless is his great love? And you see, it run back again to Hosea. You watch it?
Yes, sir.
So the prophets actually running into each other and build up each other because of what was happening in the society. The society has not really changed. You have a greedy person same way, you have cruel person same way, you have covetous person same way. And it doesn't matter until the world ends, you're going to have this.
Yes, sir.
All right. Questions or comments?
No,
No,
sir.
sir.
No questions, sir. No comments.
All right. So some things that you might need to pay attention to, you know, is in the exam coming up. And I'm not telling you exactly what's happening, but I will give you some ideas. Some of them might not, some might. You know, you must have an overall picture of the book of Hosea. All right?
Yes, sir.
And I want you to look at our outline and think about the practical lessons and also the teaching of that book. And the high possibility of the quotation of chapter 4, 6 through 8.
All right, sir.
Then I gotta tell you to be able to deal with the book of Micah. Right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Pay some attention to the background. I know some of the names are rough there, but you know, it's interested for you'll find out that people from the Middle East, people from Africa, and people from part of Europe were involved, eh?
Yes, sir. That's right.
So the lessons and the background gonna be necessary in that, and the lessons and teaching is gonna be necessary. But pay attention to chapter 6, 6 through 8.
Okay, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
So what other question do you all have?
Brother Roy was about to say something earlier.
Tell him to say it, man. We have time.
Sir, before my internet went, sir, I heard you said that we should consider a quotation. I don't hear what you said about
Your
quotation.
internet went also.
Yes, sir.
What was the last thing you heard?
Quotation. Something about quotation, sir.
All right. Quotation. I gave a quotation from Hosea already, and quotation from Micah. All right. The quotation, overall quotation I gave from Hosea was chapter 4, 1 through 10. I gave it that, but it can be 2 verses, it can be 3 verses, but I want you to have that overall picture. Know that chapter. And Micah now,
yes, sir.
boil on to chapter 6, 6 through 8. Is that okay?
Yes, sir. That's okay, sir.
All right, I'm glad you understand. Brother Solin?
Yes, sir. Did you hear
What
me?
question do you have?
Oh, well, I've said that I didn't have any questions.
Okay, Brother Wood?
Me neither, sir.
Okay, that's good then. So listen, you all take the rest of the day
Okay,
and
sir.
do your preparation.
Yes, sir.
All right, sir. Thank you very much.
By the way, can you tell if they get paper over there? And ink?
For the printing, sir?
Yes, not. Are they printing anything in the office?
Well, we are not sure about that, sir. I haven't heard
Brother,
about it, sir.
Okay. All right, thank you.